Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I bring you my September wrap up.
It's coffee time.
In September, I didn't have as much time as I had hoped for reading because I did go on holidays for like 9 days or so, and I was hoping to read more while on holidays, but I was unable to, which is fine because it is very important to have some time off and spend some time with your family, your parents, your friends, your partner, and it was really good for me. I was also so busy with people and going places that I didn't even really did anything in social media. I was very disconnected for the whole time, which I think it was a great reset for me, and I'm trying to get back to posting more and all of that. But now that we are officially in October and I have finished my September TBR, I finished some stuff. I didn't finish all the books that I had put on my TBR, but that is fine. I did finish a total of 8 things, and I believe that audiobooks really helped me out in September, so I'm very thankful for that. And all of the things that I read I liked more or less, but there was nothing under a 3 rating, so all in all it has been quite a decent month. Also, in the month of September, I have finally reached my 100 book goal in Goodreads, so I have officially accomplished my goal for this year, so I can just keep going with a peace of mind that I already did get the 100 books read. If you're new here, hi, welcome. We like to rate our books with coffee mugs, and I always end up with the lowest rating, so we end up on the positive note of my highest ranked book of the month. Let's start with The Butcher by Laura Kat Young, and this is a horror dystopian book. I had this one on my Kindle for a while. I think I got an ARC from NetGalley and then I never read it on time. Oops. And I was determined to read it because the theme of the book sounded really good to me. And I have to say, I did enjoy this book, but it had less horror than I would have wanted, and that is why I didn't give it a higher rating. Also because at times it was a little bit repetitive. The novel felt more like a Western dystopia in which we follow a girl that is basically forced to become the new butcher. The butcher are those who give the punishment to people that have been convicted for their crimes. So people that have done something wrong, have stolen something, have said something wrong that rubbed, the people in power the wrong way, they are being judged and they're given atonements. And each atonement means that the butcher needs to cut a little piece of them off. So a finger, a foot, a hand, a piece of an ear. You get the gist. The story is very dark and very tragic, and it kind of explores almost the way that the world worked in feudal times, where you would have people in power that would basically determine your whole life. In this world, you cannot really change your job. Whatever your parents do or are, that's what you're gonna become, and there is no way of getting out of it. So this book did have the Hunger Games vibes over it. It was not exactly the same thing, but you do have people that are distributed in different types of settlements, and you have these kind of deputies that are the law, but they are of course a little bit corrupted. So it has a little bit of that Hunger Games flavor to it. And even though this society is very much patriarchal and the men are the ones in power, it is always the women that become butchers, because our main character talks about, my grandmother did it, my mother did it, now I have to do it. So it is very interesting that they choose women for this, and I think it's because men assume that if you have to go somewhere to get punished, you probably feel less scared or apprehensive if a woman is the one that's gonna chop off your finger, even though I don't know if that makes much sense, but I'm guessing that's the idea. We explore generational trauma and what it means to live in an oppressive society. And you see our main character struggling because it is really hard to get out of that kind of society, and there is nowhere to run basically for our main character. And this story is a story about hope and resilience. But the problem is that I think in the middle bit, it just got a little bit too repetitive for me, like nothing exciting was happening. The beginning is great. The ending I was happy and content with. It's just the middle that was dragging a little bit for me. Lady May, our main character, I think was a great main character. She was flawed, but at the same time, it was someone that you could kind of relate with, and you understand that she's put in a very difficult position. She's just trying to navigate her reality with the tools that she has been given. So if you like the topic, the theme of this, it is a quick read because I think it is under 300 pages. It's not very long, but I just kind of wish I would have gotten a little bit more of the horror. A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson, and I listened to this mystery thriller as an audiobook, and I did realize a little bit too late that this is number 3 on a detective mystery thriller series, but I don't think it was very much of a detriment for me. I still could follow up, I still could understand everything that was going on. I think I just missed probably some Easter eggs from the other books, and of course the connection of some characters that for me was obvious that they knew each other from the past, but I didn't know exactly their backstory. So I think I can still go back and listen to book 1 and 2 because they're also available on audio, and then I can fill in the gaps. But I don't think that I had to 100% have read 1 and 2 to fully understand what happened in this one. We follow Martha. She's a happily married woman, and she married very quickly to this guy, and he is a salesman, so he does travel a lot. His name is Alan, so he travels for business purposes, and one day the wife realizes that, weirdly enough, in every single town that her husband is staying the night for his business trips, a girl is killed. And it's all over the news, and when she starts to investigate, she realizes every single place he's been to, somebody has been killed. So Martha starts to wonder, am I married to a serial killer? Am I thinking too much? Am I crazy? She does not want to overreact, so she decides to call one of her old friends, Lily, and she asks her for help. So the two women are gonna try to investigate the husband and figure out if he is indeed a serial killer. The story is told through multiple POVs. We have Martha, we have Lily, and we have the killer. And I thought that was very interesting and entertaining at the same time because you could hear the thoughts of each character, and I think that gave the story like another dimension. It gave it depth, and it made it a lot more entertaining. The biggest twist of the book, funny enough, comes actually kind of like halfway through the book, and from that point on, obviously I questioned if the second half was going to be as tense and as interesting for me, but it turns out that it was because we focus a lot more on Lily and another character that comes later called Henry, and those were my two favorite characters of this book. I kind of wish that I would have spent more time with them, but I think these characters are also in the other books, so I am definitely gonna go back to book 1 and 2 and see if I can learn more about these two guys. This was entertaining, it was fast-paced, it is your typical story of there is a serial killer on the loose. Who is this guy? Is it Alan? Is it someone else? And are they going to be able to catch this guy before it's too late? So it's kind of solving that mystery, but I really enjoy the way that it was done, and I would definitely read more by the author. Nightmare Fuel: The Science of Horror Films by Nina Neseth, and this one is a non-fiction horror book. First of all, let me tell you, if you have not seen many horror movies and you don't want to get spoiled, maybe this is not the book for you, because there is a lot of commentary on horror films, obviously, and there are a lot of explanations about endings and plot twists. And so if you have not seen a lot of the classic horror movies in particular, maybe skip this until you have, unless you don't mind getting spoiled, but some of the things that they are addressing in the book are quite like the big spoilers. Luckily, I've seen everything. I've seen a lot, and so for me, it didn't come as a shock, or it didn't like ruin or spoil other horror movies for me. Keep in mind, this book focuses on science, and it is not exactly about the magic of horror movies or how horror movies are done or horror movies throughout the ages. It's not that type of book. This book explores the reasons why, according to science, people like and enjoy watching horror, what kind of things are activated in our brains. Also, what happens if we are exposed to horror at a younger age? Does this influence us and makes us a more violent person? Why do we enjoy horror movies? Like, why do we keep watching them if we are genuinely scared of them? This book has many examples of different scientific studies that have been done on people and related to horror movies. We also get a lot of commentary on horror movies, horror movie examples, and we even get interviews with people that have been involved in creating horror movies, not just directors, but other type of, professionals in the business. And I thought those bits were really interesting to hear from the people that actually create these movies, what kind of techniques they use to try to scare the viewers. Now, there were a couple of points brought up, a couple of opinions that I didn't quite agree with. Not talking about the science part of it, because I'm not a scientist, I don't know about that stuff, so I'm not gonna comment on that. But other things that were mentioned about the horror genre in the horror tropes and things, I didn't quite agree with, but that's a different story because we all have very different opinions on things. I think this is going to be a very entertaining and interesting read for people that love horror movies as much as I do. It definitely puts certain things into perspective and makes you question certain things about your brain and all of that. But obviously keep in mind that they do spoil a lot of ending and plot twists of famous horror movies. Next I have Last Seen Online by Lauren James, and this is a YA mystery thriller. I believe the author published, I don't know if it was a novella or something online about this before. This turned into a full-length novel published by a traditional publisher, but I never read that, so I had no previous contact with the story whatsoever. At the beginning of the book, I was very hooked because obviously there's been a crime that has been committed and somebody has been blamed for it. But was the wrong person blamed for the crime? And that is what our main character Delilah wants to find out. So that sounded off the bat and felt very much a little bit like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and so I was very invested at the very beginning. While Delilah is investigating this actor's murder, she comes across some old blog posts by someone that calls themselves Goaty, and she goes kind of like down the rabbit hole. You know when somebody's trying to investigate something and they just go deep dive into the web? That's basically a lot of this book. Delilah partners together with Sawyer, who is the son of a famous actress, and they are both really interested in solving this case because they feel like from the beginning there's a lot of things that don't add up and a lot of things that don't make sense, and they just want to clear the name of the person who has been accused because they believe he might have been framed or accused for no reason. The book is told through prose as well as different types of mixed media, and even though the book started very strong for me, it kind of started losing fuel. I think the premise is very interesting, and I did like all the commentary about the internet culture, social media, the fandom, how toxic obsession with famous people can be, how the internet can also be toxic, how some truths are just twisted and bent and retold in a different way by the media, and it's just a very interesting conversation. The book also talks about how famous people are sometimes judged online so harshly even though nobody knows them. So it is a little bit a reminder that not everything you see and not everything you read is true. And as much as I was waiting to get to the climax and get answers, the whole reveal was a little bit weak for me, and it left me wanting something more. There is an epilogue, but the epilogue for me just felt rushed and even forced. But all in all, it was an interesting YA mystery thriller, and I did like the conversation about how much power we're given to these famous people, how the fandom sometimes can be a little bit too much. And I hope that this helps a lot of younger readers to realize some of those things. So I think for that is a great book and an interesting modern topic that still needs to be discussed. There are some interesting twists and turns to the story, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to love this book so much, but for me it kind of started to lose fuel at some point and it never quite picked it back up. Next we have The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland, and this is a YA horror fantasy, and I was really excited to get to this one. I was not able to read it in physical form, but lucky for me I did have access to the audiobook, so that is how I have read this book. We follow three women. The first one is called Jude, and Jude is the daughter of a billionaire. So she supposedly should have it all, but that is very far from the truth. When she was 15, she made a mistake and she kind of like played a little bit with the occult and ended up with a curse. Then we follow Zara. Zara has just lost her sister Savannah. She has been murdered by a serial killer and she is very angry about it. She wants to do something about it. She wants revenge. And so she starts also to dab a little bit into the occult. And then we have Emmer. Emmer is a woman that sells spells to women, that helps witches, and that's why Zara and Jude go seeking help to her and asks for help basically because they want to, you know, destroy the serial killer that is killing women, and they also want to bring Zara's sister Savannah back to life. This is at its core a story about witches, but it is very modern, very fresh, very unique, and it is told through multiple POVs, and those are the POVs of the different women in the book. It is a mix between a serial killer murder mystery and a occult witchcraft group, and it was so good, and it also had a lot of female rage in it, which I really enjoyed as well. Getting into the book was a little bit of a slow process for me to get into the story because, like I said, it was told through the different POVs, and at the very beginning you still don't know where the connection of these women is going to start, and so you follow them separately until they come together. And I felt like for me, when I was listening to their stories separately, I was having trouble connecting with them in an emotional level. And once Emmer came around, once they were three and they were all focusing on the main goal of finding the serial killer that is targeting women and destroy him, I think that's when my interest really peaked. And so for a lot of it, I was just like, you know, just waiting for it to kick in. And I have to say, for me, the second half of this book was a lot better than the first half. But still, if I think about how invested I was with the characters, with the sisters of House of Hollows, this one I was definitely less invested with the girls. The setting was very atmospheric, as I would definitely expect by the author, because House of Hollow was such a dark, atmospheric tale, and you can expect the same from this one as well. I think it opens up also a very interesting conversation because the book opens up basically with a woman walking home alone in the middle of the night when she's scared of every single shadow person thing she sees. She wants to take the safe way home and not go through the faster way because it's under a tunnel, and we've all been there. If you're a woman, you've been there. And it's scary, and I thought that was such a powerful way of starting the book. The book felt like I was in the real world. It didn't feel like I was in a fantasy made-up world. It just felt like I was in the real world, but in this real world there were occult forces and spells and things that were just integrated into it, and it just felt so natural. So I really loved the whole vibe and the atmosphere that the book had. Unfortunately, I did not love it as much as her other book, but I think that she has beautiful writing style, and I'm definitely gonna be checking out her next book. Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, and the writing style in this book was delicious. It was fantastic, which is maybe a weird thing to say because this book is very, very dark and slightly depressing. This is such a devastating story, and I think it's going to stay with you long after you have read this book and finished it, and after the book has finished you. But the writing style was just And I say delicious again because the way that the author was describing things, I could taste it, I could drink it, I could eat it. Like, it was just such a good experience. After a deep sea mission that ended catastrophically, Miri is still grieving the loss of her wife, Leah. Basically, they lost contact with them, months passed, and they all assumed they were dead, the whole team that went down, and now Miri is grieving her lost wife. But then Leah comes back home out of the blue. And Miri is supposed to be really happy about it, and she is at the beginning, but then she realizes that the Leah that came back is different. Something's wrong with her. Whatever happened down there under the ocean has changed her forever. And Miri should really be happy, but she knows that she's never gonna get Leah back, like the Leah that she knows. Our Wives Under the Sea is told through two different POVs. We have on the one side Miri, who is in the surface on Earth and is telling us her story, grieving her wife, but then the wife comes back and how that experience is for her. And on the other POV we have Leah, and we follow her experience and everything that happened to her under the sea and everything that happened before she came back, so that we understand why she's now changed. This is a story that is full of suspense, but it is very light when it comes to the horror. There are disturbing and messed up elements to the story, but it is, I would say, on the lighter side of horror. This might not be for every horror reader because it focuses a little bit more on the emotional part of things and on the relationship between the characters than on a horror setting. This is a sapphic story about grief and what happens when the love of your life changes and becomes someone else, and deciding if you are still able to love them after they have changed. It is a very interesting reflection on just regular human beings and relationships, because if you start dating someone in your early 20s, by the time you guys are 40, you're going to be completely different people. And that is not a bad thing, but everybody changes one way or another, and sometimes that can make or break a relationship. If somebody that you love completely changes over time, would you be still able to love them? Of course, in this case, there is a horror spin to it, so it is a little bit more unrealistic in that regard. I'm not saying that your partner is gonna go and it's gonna come back as a ghoul, a werewolf, or anything like that. Vampire would be nice, but anyway, it is more on a metaphorical sense. So I think this book was great, and the approach that the book had to grief and grieving couples was fantastic. Not in my book by Katie Holt, and this book was not on my TBR pile, but I woke up one day feeling like I wanted some romance in my life. And I decided to read this one because it's an arc that I got from NetGalley, so I wanted to review it, and it also sounded really great. This is an enemies to lovers romance, and the two main characters are forced to work together. I love it. I love it. The Hating Game is one of my favorite romance books with the trope enemies to lovers. And also, our main characters have to write a book together. So I thought, perfect. A book about books and enemies to lovers. What more can I ask for? Rosie and Aiden come from very different backgrounds, and Rosie is a lover of romance and she has hope in love and the perfect love and all of that. And Aiden, he's not very much of a romantic. He rather read and write other types of fiction books, and he always thinks that romance is very stupid. So obviously Rosie and Aiden, they butt heads, but they are in the same writing class, and they are always kind of bickering, and they're kind of always pushing each other down. And the teacher is like, guys, you cannot talk like this to each other. You need to support each other. You need to learn, you know, to give like good feedback instead of just insulting each other. And so the teacher forces them to work together, and they have to write a book together. A romance book. So now they're fudged. Rosie is a Peruvian American, and she is in desperate need of money, and she needs to get the best grades in this writing class because she's hoping to get help, like a grant or something, to go to college. And so she knows that she's gonna have to do anything to get the best grade, even if that means working with her arch enemy in this book that the teacher wants them to write. Aiden is someone that has not had the most loving family, but he has money, so he's never had to worry about that. So they do come from very different backgrounds. They want different things for the future, and they have different challenges. But as they get to know each other, obviously, writing this book, they're going to realize that the other is not as bad as they thought it was. This book was very addictive. The chapters, I just felt like they flew by. I was really like, I think I read it also in a couple of days. I was really engaged with the relationship. I wanted to know where things were going, what was going to happen next. You also get bits of the book that Rosie and Aiden are writing together, with those bits were also really cool to read. And there's a lot of steamy scenes, so keep that in mind if you're someone that loves romance but you don't like scenes to get graphic and steamy, because this book has steamy and graphic scenes, so keep that in mind. But I thought this was a great enemies to lovers romance, especially for book people, because obviously they are commenting on what it takes to write a book, what are the tropes of romance books and all of that, so it is perfect for book lovers. The ending, in my opinion, was a little bit messy in the way that the characters talked or acted. It felt a little bit out of character for me, but you know, in a way, relationships are messy, people change, people are messy, people are not perfect, and so in a way it could be realistic, but I think I was just not a huge fan of how the ending resolved. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely gonna be checking out anything else that the author writes. And last but not least, we have Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. This was the book that I read together with my Patreons in the month of September, and what a great pick. This has now become my favorite Rachel Harrison book. Granted, I've only read 2, but this now is at the top, and I don't know if any other of her books is gonna be able to top it. Vesper left home 6 years ago because she was just not getting on well with her very religious family. She wanted to escape, she wanted to experience what it is to live a normal life, almost like, you know, the Amish people leaving the community and trying to experience what it is to be in the real world, outside of their community and their religion and their beliefs. So she has been gone from home for 6 years, and once you leave, you're not allowed to contact them again. You're basically out of the family. And she's not working at a diner, serving tables, you know, experiencing what it is to have a normal life. And then one day, she gets an invitation in the mail. It is an invitation to her cousin slash best friend's wedding, and she's very confused because normally people are not allowed to contact you once you leave the community. And she's questioning, you know, should I go back? Should I not do it? But she's very curious to see if everybody is still the same. And her cousin was her best friend. So she thinks, okay, if she's inviting me, maybe I should go and be there. The moment she gets there, she kind of regrets it. She's like, I knew I should not have come. And she realizes nothing has changed. Her family is the same, and they are kind of pushing her to come back home and stay and join their religion again. This book has a big commentary on obsession, on faith, on tradition, on the things you inherit from your family and all of that. How much of your surroundings and your upbringing make you who you are? Are you able to change your DNA? This book gave me at some point Sabrina the Teenage Witch vibes, and I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody that has not read the book, but the first part of the book, the first half, was kind of getting to know Vesper in her new life and kind of seeing how her family was and what kind of religion they have. And the second half just got a little bit crazy. It just took a different tone that I was not expecting, and I had so much fun with that second half of the book. Like, the first part is Vesper and family trauma, and the second half talks about the darkest aspects of religion and the power of suggestion. This book basically is asking you the question, can we choose our own fate, or is our destiny already written? This was great. It's not gonna work for everybody, especially because of the second half and the change in tone, but I loved it, and I think if you have read other books by her, you might really enjoy this one as well. I don't know, for me it just really worked. I have seen other people that have loved The Return not really enjoying this one, which I don't understand because I read The Return, really enjoy it, and now I read this one, and for me this is better. So I guess it's a taste thing, but I love her writing. It flows very well. It's very easy to read. You are really invested in the characters. These books are fun. I think she combines horror and a lot of different subgenres of horror in one book always, and she brings a little bit, a tiny bit of like fun, but like satire and kind of social commentary done in a way that it's just fun. I don't know how best to describe it, but that's it. And I cannot tell you more about it and go into specifics because I would be spoiling a lot of things that I feel like it's better if you experience them for yourself. And those were, you guys, the 8 books that I managed to read in the month of September. I hope that you enjoyed watching my wrap up, and let me know what is the best book that you read during the month of September. If you want to support me and the channel, please do consider joining my Patreon. The link is down below. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!